listening to the Lone Star Plate podcast with your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong.
We are now going to meet this wonderful couple here and talk about their great band, Tulip. So welcome. We have Ashely and Colin, right?
Yep.
Yes.
How's it going, Patrick?
Thank you for having us.
I like you guys have the little sound mixing board in the back. Just to let everyone know.
Yeah,
right?
this is
we're
at home right now. Yeah.
We need a little bit of backlighting too, so computer monitors
Smart. Look at this guy. He knows. He's in the industry. I love it. Yes. This is look, we found out about y'all's band Tulip through a Texas Monthly article, and I think a lot of people will probably find out about you through that. But aside from just having fans that are already of y'all through the music, but just opened up doors, right? Any sort of publication, anything that gets out to get the name out helps, right? In any way. So yeah, that's exciting. How did that come about, that article in Texas Monthly?
Oh my gosh, it's like kind of a long story, but I grew up with the writer, but we lost touch through the years. She's much younger than I am, but she's from Canada, and she heard about like these major life shifts that I had made in my life. And she reached out to us over Facebook, I think. And she just said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I want to write this piece." And she came and she lived with us for basically a week when we were about to do our show at Trees last September. And then it's been a year in the making, basically, going through everything. And yeah, she's become a very close friend now, but we were, excited to do the article with her.
Yeah. This is Rachel Brown too.
Yeah.
Just give her a little
Brown.
Plug.
Of course. Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess to just follow up on that, she had written the piece or drafted it, and she kind of shopped it around a little bit as a freelancer. And Texas Monthly, one of the editors there, really liked it, and his name was Josh, and so Josh also came and hung out with us for an afternoon and kind of talked through things. So it worked out well, and I think it's a very proud moment for us to be in such a reputable publication. So,
and I think she's done such a beautiful job, and she's such an excellent writer, and
it was well written. Absolutely. I was riveted, if I can use that word, to be honest with you. I was riveted the whole time I was reading it. I was like, okay, where is this going? What's going to happen next? It was great. Okay, wow, I didn't know. She lived with y'all for a week. That's great. Now that y'all have reconnected. Wow, that's awesome. Wow, what a great, that's great. That's good. I'm glad I asked that. Look, I want to give a shout out to the other members of the band here. Well, first, let's have y'all introduce with your full name here, right? So everyone, and what you guys do in the band, what each of y'all's, I don't want to say position, because that's not, what is that? It's like, what is position?
I am Ashley Semke, formerly Semke Parrish, and I sing in the band.
Right. And I'm Colin Parrish, play guitar. And then our other members are Ryan Claxton, who's our drummer. He actually still lives in Toronto. So when we play shows, he's got to fly in. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. Great drummer. And then we also have Cody Casillas he's bass / other guitar. So we haven't decided exactly where to slot him in.
He's a man of many talents.
I say that because he tracked the bass on the latest record, but historically he's played guitar with us live. So we're trying to figure out what the best strategy is there. But yes, a man of many talents, and he's local here in DFW as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, he's a flex player. Look, every band needs one. No, that's awesome. I'm sure y'all, I know, I read you also play drums too, right? And you probably also play a little piano, right? Like, so it's like everyone does a little something, right? You can tinker around if you need to. No, that's awesome. That's great. And so you have a new album that's coming out, right? Called, what is it called? Perpetual Dream? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
I want to make sure I get that.
Yeah, so the record itself is not quite ready yet. The songs are written, but the way, and we could spend a minute on this, but just the way the industry is structured now, it's very difficult to self-release a full album without it sort of just getting buried in the if you're on Spotify or Apple Music, these other streaming platforms. So strategically, we tend to release singles until we get to a point where we've kind of got enough mileage on the individual tracks, so then we can go and release the full length. So At this point, there isn't a release date for the Perpetual Dream. It'll probably be spring of next year when the entire album drops. But over the next couple months, we're going to continue to release some of those singles. So the first one we released just last week is called The Hanged Man. And then there's another one coming up, which I don't think we've announced yet, but by the time this is out, probably, the track will be out. So the next track is actually called Ghost of Kyiv, which is sort of a nod to our respective Ukrainian heritage. But, it's also just, a bit of an allegory for our life as well. So,
yeah.
That's awesome. Wow, that's so cool. So you're just perpetually releasing singles until the album.
That's one way to think of it. Yeah.
I like that idea. Why don't bands do that more? Like, why do we even need albums anymore? Just singles. I mean, I love albums, don't get me wrong. But I don't know why, I've talked to so many musicians. It's just insane. Like this idea that everyone says this, like, I don't know why it's just like, well, just a single or a couple songs at a time. There is no album. It's just, I got new music. It's coming out. It comes out. Yeah. I don't know. Hip hop artists do that a lot.
It's a double-edged sword. Yeah. I think because we love to, I love albums. Like I love listening to vinyl or like just a record front to back.
Of course.
But today it's just the way that we all are. We're moving so quickly. And
when's the last time you listened to a whole album?
For me, it's been a long time.
Me too. It's tough. You got playlists. You got,
I have so many playlists. Right.
It's hard. It's there's this whole thing about play. Yeah. It's just, I look, if someone were to do that, just constantly release singles, I don't see that as such a bad idea I mean, eventually you have a whole album out and more, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the way we are going to do it, and we did this with the last EP, which was called The Witch, is you release the singles and then you package them together in an album, and then you want the record, the artwork, the liner notes, all that kind of stuff. You can get that.
And in metal, people still, it's maybe one of the it's maybe other than jazz, it's like one of the main genres that still wants a full length album. So yeah.
Okay. I could see that. Yeah, that's smart. One, you just got to know your audience, which it sounds like y'all do, right? That's just start there. So yeah, great job. Kudos to y'all. First of all, yeah. Well, look, we look forward to that. I know you got a tour coming up too, right? Next year that was postponed because of the pandemic, like so many numerous things. So that's exciting, right? That's going to happen. First of all, that y'all were able to get that rescheduled. That's exciting.
Yeah, we hope so, because it was scheduled for 2020. It was bumped to 2021. It was bumped to 2022, and now it's been bumped to 2023. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
One way or another, we will be back out touring, but it remains to be seen whether or not we'll actually end up in Europe with Tarja, who's the artist that's headlining that tour. But still looking forward to getting out in the next couple of months and playing some live shows.
Either way, right? Yeah, either way. Yeah, absolutely. Look, Europe's not going anywhere, right? So no problem. I lived there a couple of years. It's great, but it's the same life here. There's it's just you pay bills, you live life. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. Yep. Okay, so look, this Texas Monthly story is, and I do an intro at the beginning, so I will have explained a lot, sort of the cliff notes, right, quickly of sort of what went down. But let's jump into this. This y'all's story is absolutely fascinating, and in some ways I relate to some of the stuff. I myself was in a church. I wasn't happy with it, and I left, but not y'all's situation, right? Y'all's is much more way different from that. But I had that same journey as far as that goes. So yeah, I kind of want to explore that, and I want to have y'all just sort of take it however y'all want. Maybe just starting with how y'all met. How did that happen?
Go ahead.
I mean, 11, 12 years ago now, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2010, I guess.
We met, I was an opera singer for 10 years, and I joined this church. We had both, well, I'll speak for myself. I was raised in a very conservative evangelical family, and I started attending this church that had this reputation for being apologetics based, which is just like a defense of the faith. It's a bit more like educational each Sunday. It's less touchy-feely. And so I was excited to go there. I'd been a Christian for my whole life. And I started going there, and I met Colin there, and you actually had gone there before I had, but it was a fledgling community. It was only about 50 people to start. And I liked it at first. It was a lot of young people, and it was in Toronto, and they were doing, I found it fascinating personally.
Sure.
So they quickly identified that I was a musician, and they wanted me to be involved with the worship program. But because I was a woman, I couldn't actually be in charge of the whole thing, even though I was in charge of the whole thing. I needed to be under the leadership of a man based on this sort of the way that this kind of church was run. So
sure.
I started just playing the piano, singing from the piano, and then I met Colin, and that's how we met. And you had already been kind of doing all kinds of stuff with the band.
You were already in the band, Colin? You were already playing in the band?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much detail you want to cover, but in the evangelical community, and just in the church community in general, right? You have this concept of a church plant, right? Mm-hmm. So this was a church plant. In other words, these larger churches, or sometimes, in this case, I think there was like a governing body of sorts for this
I think
denomination.
It was also associated with RZAM.
Fed though, right?
Yeah.
So. Anyway, the point is just that Christians get together and they say, hey, we need to put a church in this community. So they donate, they find resources, pastors, staff, whatever, and they set up a church. So when we came into that environment, and I was recommended that church from a kind of a mutual Christian friend, there weren't many people there, and anybody who was there kind of immediately ended up in some sort of leadership role, whether it was, sure. I wasn't a leader per se, but I had my, my strengths around the music stuff and audio and that kind of stuff. So I helped set some of that up. So that's the natural kind of connection that Ashley and I had when we first met. Was, she was a musician, and her focus was mostly preparing the music, and I was more on the technical side. Like I had my drum kit there, and I set up the audio and sound equipment and everything. So
and the one thing I will say that's good about the church is that they were very hymn heavy, but they let us sort of have license with the hymns. So we couldn't really get into the Hillsong or the Bethel or I don't know if you are recognizing any of these terms, but the stuff that's on Christian radio now, they weren't really that into that. So we had to find creative ways to sing these old hymns from the 1700s and make them contemporary. And we had a great time doing that together.
Like if you go into a Hobby Lobby, what you hear in the Hobby Lobby, that's right. Christian, like contemporary Christian worship. Music, right? So it's basically it's Coldplay with Jesus is my boyfriend kind of lyrics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I remember that sort of worship singing in church. Yeah. I had to play guitar myself a few times, right? Like, hey, we need somebody fill in here. You're just singing. I don't remember the songs though. It's been that long. I'm curious if the songs were similar to the church like that. Like
I'm sure they were.
No. Yeah. I'm sure they were. Yeah. I'm sure. Who knows? Yeah. For sure. Please, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, so then we met in the band, and we obviously flirted a bit, and my gosh, where did we go from there?
I wouldn't just say we flirted a bit. The fact is that because of the nature of our relationship, we ended up spending a lot of time together, and that wasn't intentional, right? I mean, it became intentional, but at first it was sort of in order for Ashley to be able to prepare the music, we need to have the equipment ready. Her and I would kind of pre-plan all this stuff. It actually, forgot about this, but the church building moved. And so in that process of setting up a new building, we basically, we procured a whole bunch of equipment. We spent a lot of time, basically just setting up this new music program. So I think through that experience of spending a lot of time together in a very functional capacity, right? Sure. Actually working together, we discovered that, of course, we were, basically clones of one another. So we were,
and we had similar backgrounds. Like we were both married very young to other people. So we don't get too much into that, but
yeah, I mean, we can talk about as much as you want to cover, but I think that kind of, you know, sets the stage for like Ashley and I became close to that process, right? It wasn't you know, like she caught my eye at like a bar or something. It was just like we spent a lot of time working on things together, right? And developed not only a close friendship, but just a partnership in a sense that obviously ended up being much deeper than that. So
what was like, you know, when I'm reading through the article, it's like, you know, at what point do y'all realize, you know, we want something more, but we can't have it? Like, how does that even work? Like, are you thinking maybe we can be together, we can find a way, or we can't be together, so just forget about it? Or you're not even thinking that way at all yet?
At which point you realize we're in big trouble?
Yeah, basically, I guess, right? Because you're having feelings you can't get rid of, right? I mean, essentially, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you take more of this, but I think it was the music component to this is unique in that music is art, right? And so when you have a connection with someone, like I mentioned, it's functional in that, you know, we're setting things up, we're working together, maybe like a work colleague. There's a certain utility to that. But when you know, you find yourself in that circumstance within the context
there's
of
an
art,
intimacy.
There's an intimacy that grows out of that, right? And something as simple as like playing together, you know, you can play, and it sounds like you're a guitar player, so that, you know, maybe you understand.
No, I'm not good. I'm not good at all.
You probably understand the experience of playing with someone that you have kind of a natural, you're lost in.
Yes,
absolutely. Like, this doesn't work, right? So Ashley and I really found that there was a, you know, like a very intuitive connection between us when we would perform, especially when I was playing drums and she was playing piano and singing, and like that experience of feeling connected to somebody through art, right, was probably the point at which we realized this is going to be tough to continue to keep at a kind of platonic level.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, but we were both very committed Christians. We were like, we don't have a choice here. We don't have an option here. So
exactly.
At the same time, I was also still singing in opera and doing other stuff too, singer-songwriter stuff. And I was under immense pressure by the community, by our former pastor, by my mother specifically, to have children. And I hadn't done that yet. I had waited 7 years, and which is unusual in the church. And when I did get pregnant, got pregnant right away with twins with my ex-husband. And that was, I think, just the real thing that just put the brakes on any kind of feelings that we might have had or even tried to discuss. That was the thing. And we thought, okay, this is God is showing us. Well, that's how I felt anyway. God is saying to me, okay, it's time for you to just grow up, become a mother, a Christian wife and mother. You need to focus on this responsibility in your life. That's your job when you're a Christian woman in this, I don't say extreme, but this very conservative arm of Calvinist Christianity. So I just swallowed that and said, okay, great. And, you know, I had my twins who I absolutely adore. And we lost touch. Well, not lost touch, but we parted ways for quite a long time.
Yeah. And I think, you know, naturally, we were in our mid-20s at that time, right? So you're growing, right, as an individual, even without all this chaos in the background. So I think we both sort of accepted the fact that like our lives, you know, were diverging in a sense, right? And you know,
and we wished each other well, basically.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, and you weren't around as much because you were at home with twins, right? And all the challenges that come with that. So I think you know, that period in the middle, which we like to refer to as the dark ages.
The dark ages.
That's when we were most committed to like, this was essentially a mistake. To ever have felt that way was wrong. Yeah. And that was in line with what we believe to be true from a biblical perspective, right? A Christian perspective.
Sure.
So,
You felt like you weren't allowed to have these feelings, like it was wrong,
Oh,
right? It was sinful, right?
no.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you think your husband maybe did he know that there was something going on? He was like, maybe if she gets pregnant, that'll put a kibosh to that.
that's a
And
good question. I, I don't think so. No, he was not around a lot, so I don't think that he was really paying that close attention.
that's interesting. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we,
yeah.
um,
and we've been careful to not
Yeah.
be critical of our ex-spouses, but
sure.
naturally,
Yeah.
they're like, and this is the thing, we have to, most people, as I mentioned, in your 20s, you grow. And so having been married
Yes.
extremely young, those
Mhm.
relationships had ran their course to some extent. And that it doesn't mean that there was necessarily anything wrong with the relationships, but the individuals, you know,
Mhm.
there, there just wasn't. I'm trying to be political and careful
Well,
about
Patrick,
this,
are
but
you married? Are you
I
married?
am married, but I've been
Okay.
married twice. So I did get divorced,
Okay.
once before. And I actually got divorced from my wife that I'm with. Like, we got divorced and then we got back together.
Oh,
oh,
wow.
okay.
But we
Okay.
didn't get remarried again. We just didn't care
Okay.
about that. And she's from another country, so we kind of did
Okay.
it for papers in a lot of
Right.
ways. We kind
Right.
of rushed into it for that reason, but we realized, we do want to be together. So
Okay.
we're.
That's
But
beautiful.
yes.
Imagine you married the person that you like, your high school sweetheart.
Yeah, I mean, my first marriage, absolutely.
Okay.
I can't
Okay.
imagine still being with her. I'm such a different person, 100%.
Right.
Like, totally, like, yes. Just imagine my high school sweet, like, married to her. Are you kidding me?
So for some people, but
Yeah,
it's just
sure. I've
it's
changed so much.
yeah.
I've been like five people since I was
Right.
18.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's definitely. I totally understand y'all's situation. I think anyone
Yeah.
listening or watching this is going to relate to you
Yeah.
guys, like
It's like
1,000%.
you
You
almost
know?
need like term limits on marriages, right? It's like you sign up for a 10-year deal and you re-up after 10 years if it's going well, right? I mean,
It's a lease. It's like a lease, right? Yeah, it's a lease. Let me re-up. Look, you only put so many mileage on it a year. You do a little down payment at the
right.
beginning. No, I'm kidding. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, people do change. Now, I think the older you get, that change is less drastic. You
Sure.
know what I mean? As you change, but definitely when I don't know anyone who's still the same as 18, and I'm 42, right? Coming into either the late 30s or early 40s. I can't imagine, that same person. So even I think at 35, I think I was a different person. Literally, 35, I was a different person. That was 7 years ago. So
Yeah, and to be candid too, right? Most of your peers, had long-term relationships in their early
Mm-hmm.
20s. They lived with these people, perhaps, in many cases. And those relationships run their course and they move on. They find the love of their life when they're in their mid to late 20s. They get married and the rest is history.
Right.
It's like we should have been in that same boat, but because of our conservative Christian upbringing, there was a lot of pressure to be married as quickly as possible for a whole host of reasons. Most critically, the celibacy thing, right? Like
Yeah.
in the conservative Christian community, especially in the 90s with the
Purity
culture and
culture.
all this, it was very
yeah,
important to not have sex before you were married, right?
sure.
That was
Yeah,
the mantra of the entire evangelical movement at that time. So I think that certainly meant that unless you were real disciplined, I guess you weren't waiting around until you were 35,
Right.
right? Like, let's be real, right? So and to like Ashley said, for some people it worked out, and that's incredible.
That's
If you
beautiful.
happen to find the person that you go
absolutely,
in that same
100%.
direction, great.
Yep,
But
yep.
for a lot of folks and a lot of people we know, especially the Christians that we know, life happens and you grow up and you grow apart and people change. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, not an excuse by any sense, but just when we talk about this with Christians, it's sort of like we're talking about it as we're people who are divorced, but most of these people have had equivalently
Mhm.
long, serious, committed relationships, but they just weren't stamped with the marriage seal.
Correct.
So
Or a work relationship, or this relationship, or
Right.
that relationship, right? Like, if we're really going to start like, what's the difference really between commitments? We all
Right.
change commitments, right, in life. Just how it goes. No, I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I agree. Are y'all? I should have asked this at the beginning. I'm curious. Are y'all still believers in God?
How much time do we have?
I am still, I mean, spiritual. It's like such a cheesy, like cliche thing to say. I'm spiritual. Um, I I do believe in like a higher power. I believe in a collective consciousness. I don't know exactly. I think it's beautiful to not know, honestly, but to be open to it. I'm not against anything. I don't condemn anyone for anything they believe. I think it's all great. But it's the hell part, I think, that we really had to come to terms with and discard for ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, philosophically, I think it would be unwise to pretend that existence is not intentional to some extent. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to put your finger on exactly why you're here. And it could be that most of that is explained through, theoretical physics or cosmology or whatever. But at the end of that, you're still left with that why question, And so I think
Sure.
to me, like Ashley said, the freedom now on the other side of all this is acknowledging that truth is unknowable. It's fundamentally unknowable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to, like, the word I would use is you don't have to worry about it. Like, we worried about that constantly as Christians, worried about where we stand with respect to God, whether the decisions I'm making today are in accordance with his will, and just this pressure of worrying about the future based on, that idea that there was this, omnipotent God who was in control of everything and he was watching you, and you, in some sense, you had to stay on that straight and narrow, right? So I think, do I believe in God? Not in the Christian biblical sense. Do I believe that there is certainly meaning and purpose to life that is, as I said, fundamentally unknowable?
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. And when we get there, maybe it's after death, maybe it's through some kind of other experience. We didn't watch much of your other content.
Oh, but the UFO one that you did.
Right. There's the UFO phenomenon. There's the DMT stuff. There's all these other things that point to, like, there's a curtain between the physical, the tangible, and something else, right? So, it would be, again, I think, foolish at this point, having come through all this, to pretend that we have any definitive answers. That was the whole problem with what we believed, that it was always black and white, cut and dry, objectively. This is what, the Bible says is true, and therefore here's your roadmap for life. It's like, it doesn't work that way. Could be anything.
Okay, but Patrick, where are you at with all this?
I've had a long journey with it, to be honest with you. Quickly, I'll give you the quick. So I was raised Catholic. My mom was Catholic. She's from Mexico, so we were raised very, very Catholic. But not like super, just like every once in a while you got to go to mass and you got to show up and whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when I was 18, I joined a Baptist church. I met some people that sort of were talking to me about God and whatever, and I was fascinated for like 6 months. I remember just like having arguments. Well, if God's real, then what about this? Just going back and forth. And finally, I don't know. I really think more I fell in love with just hanging out with cool people and doing fun things. And I wasn't really a drinker. I wasn't a partier, and they leaned towards that life of not being that way. So I was like, this is cool. I was straight edge, as we called it when I was skating back in the day, right? So I was like, this is cool. I'll do this. And it was fascinating to have deep conversations about eternal things at such an age, at 18, right? Like these things that my other friends weren't talking about. Oh, what are we doing? What are we eating? Right. I'm having these deep conversations with sort of, guys in their mid-20s, and I just felt more sophisticated and, okay, this is great. So I accepted God, and I went through the church process for a couple years, and I was a real believer, like hardcore. I really believed. But then it started to wane when I just got tired of never getting anything back. I was like, man, I'm looking all around. Everyone's like feeling all this energy. I don't feel nothing. I don't hear nothing. I pray, I talk. Nobody ever said, but they say they hear something. He's either lying or I'm not working. So I was like, I'll never lie to myself just to get that feeling. So I said, let me go on another exploration. And I actually became very anti-theist, Christopher Hitchens, right? I was very into that. And then I really backed off of that because I didn't like that either. Because I like the idea of just, you do you. If that helps your life, you do you. This is me. I don't particularly know the answer, but I'm open to something. But I don't know what it is. I think all the gods that have been presented on earth so far are not the ones. I'm not saying there isn't one. I just don't know what's going on. Nobody can prove it to me yet. And to be honest, even if they could prove it to me, doesn't mean I would accept it. Just because this God then becomes real doesn't mean, well, then I have to worship it. And what does that mean, right? Like that's a part of the conversation that never gets talked about. Well, it's true, so therefore it's true. Well, then don't I get a choice to decide if it's true, if I want it or not? The idea of hell, I didn't like either, right? These things, I don't know, just didn't seem logical. So that's where I'm at now. I just very open to, and I have a lot of friends who are believers. My closest friends are believers, but they're more spiritual, like you say, in that sense. And we have great conversations, just the most amazing conversations. We disagree on a lot, and I love it.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. I just want us to all be able to have open conversations about it. I don't want anyone to be shot down for their beliefs. And I think
100%.
anti-theism, I was getting into that. I was becoming very, oh, you're religious? Well, you must be stupid and you must be a bad person and you must be and it's like, wait a second, Pat, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Yeah. So I've been through a long journey with it. And honestly, it's probably not over.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I think, for us, I think there was a natural inclination for Ashley in particular to react after everything we've been through to be like, Christians are bad, like period, right? And to your point, it's like as you mature and as you grow, you realize, the wisdom that comes with age is not judging people, no matter what.
Correct. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Well
and
said.
That
well said.
Is truly, not the antithesis of, but it certainly goes against the kind of conservative mainline Christian worldview, which is that we have the truth. We have the truth. And you don't have the truth. We have the truth. And if you're not on our side, then you're against us. I mean, that's in the Bible, frankly. So, but there's something to be said for that constant debate that produces that kind of convergent truth. You don't need an absolute objective moral law to live by. You need the debate on either side that slowly brings you to the truth, right, over time. So I don't hate Christians, and I don't think that Christians are stupid necessarily, but for all the many reasons we believed it, right, especially if you're raised in the tradition, it makes sense to you. It's a coherent worldview for you. But as it sounds like you came to sort of the same conclusion, the underlying philosophy of the worldview has some pretty glaring holes in it when you're able to step back and evaluate it independent of being in it, right? So that's where we're at today, and like you, I'm sure it'll continue to evolve.
Yeah, exactly. Y'all will be on this journey, which is fascinating, to be honest. How did y'all feel about when I'm reading in the story there, what really angered me most about y'all's journey was the fact of the elders in your church, right? I hear this word elders, and I swear my skin just creeps. I'm just like, ugh. And I just picture people in cloaks just coming to your door, like, what are you doing? You must do the right thing for the church. Yeah, I wish they were in cloaks. That would be so much cooler. That would.
No, the thing that's embarrassing to me about these elders that showed up at my house to read me the riot act, it was 3 of them were divorced themselves. So it was just the hypocrisy of it was so. It's maddening now. And I remember calling a couple of my non-Christian girlfriends when it was happening. And they were like, Ashley, call the police. Why are you letting these people into your home? to abuse you for 4 hours. And
what were they saying? Like, what kind of stuff were they saying to you? I mean,
just
4 hours is a long time. Jeez.
well, it was a, I mean, at least it was long. I mean, they came in, they I think you saw the letter that was printed in the article. They read a version of that to me and just said, you need to repent. And I had a lot of in the Baptist, Calvinist, fundamentalist tradition, divorce isn't permitted under any circumstances unless there are allegations of abuse, and sometimes that's not even counted, and adultery. And so, because there wasn't a technical reason for me to be released from my ex-husband, they weren't allowing me to be released, which again is just such strange language.
So that's what it was all about, was just you getting a divorce. That's all they cared about. That was their big concern.
Yeah, they were like, this is not allowed. And so therefore you cannot make this decision unless your ex-husband chooses to release you, which he was not doing. And they, I had committed these sins of having feelings for another man. And and here he is. And just that I was breaking the church rules, and that, that I had sworn to uphold, because I had signed when I joined in membership, I had signed something. I mean, I don't know if I had signed it, but anyway, I was a person in the.
They had like a contract in front of you that you signed, or
something.
Oh,
and they were sort of saying to me, "These are the things that you've broken per the Bible." And look, honestly, they're not wrong. They were just saying the things that
they believe.
I have formerly also believed, but I was like,
good point.
I can't lie. I can't live a lie anymore, and I have to make a decision for myself. And that was sort of it. They sat there.
Why didn't your husband why would he want to not release you? You know what I mean? Like, why would he? You know what I'm saying? Like, why release? First of all, just release sounds like, what are you, like a fox? Like, what does he get to release you for? But like, just the idea of, why would you want to be with someone that doesn't want to be with you like that? Like from his state of mind, I would have been like, man, if she's this person I care about and love is wants to go on another journey. I love them so much. This is what I want for them.
That would take a real enlightened.
But I'll answer this more directly. Honestly, we can talk about this candidly, which is that part of the problem with this particular situation and this particular community was, and I'm just going to be blunt about it, Ashley's family, namely her parents, standing within the church. Okay, so her parents were very prominent people in this community.
Got it. Yeah.
So there wasn't just the pressure of church elders coming to the home and the ex-husband and what he wanted or didn't want. It was parents also in the church elders' ear saying, "You need to fix this, right?"
Yeah.
You give it like Trump and Colin or something. You know what I mean? Like, it was like that dynamic. Like, you've got the people who are actually the powerful, and then you've got their fixers who are going out, trying to get people.
So they were really there on your parents' behalf. In some ways. In some ways.
Yeah. Oh, I'd say 50-50.
Yeah, 50-50.
Not on their behalf.
If it had been another person in the church, I don't think all four main elders would have dropped everything there immediately to solve this problem.
Right, but whether they did or didn't, the pressure that was applied was two-pronged. And to answer your question about Ashley's ex-husband, there's a dynamic there which persists today, which has to do with the power dynamic of this family. And I mean, again, we got to be careful about exactly what we say, because we don't want to get in a lot of trouble. But that's the truth, right? And we had been together since we were teenagers, and he felt like they were also his family. And right. And I don't bring this up to sling mud. I actually think that this is true in many of these faith communities, right? If you've seen, I don't know, we watched The Righteous Gemstones, which is a show on HBO.
Great show. Yeah.
So good,
it's
right?
like, this is part of the. It's the nature of. It's in our human nature to some extent. As anything grows, it starts to become corrupt, right? So you get these powerful, wealthy families who are donating to the church, right, as basically a tax shelter. Let's be real. Right?
Yep.
And then you've got the people who are in charge, who are sort of beholden to those wealthy family, and it creates this corruption that exists in these Christian communities, just like it exists in business and in government and everywhere else. Yeah. Right. So I think we experienced the outpouring of that in our particular situation in a way that probably many other people that belong to these big, American mega churches or whatever small little Baptist church you go to in rural Nowheresville, right? They tend to have this dynamic where there's a group of people that support the church financially, and the spiritual leaders are in a way beholden to them, and that kind of creates this toxic.
Yeah, they came down extra hard on.
Sure. Yeah, because of the connection, right? Because of all of that, because of what they thought were the ripple effect. Yeah.
Yeah. And my ex-husband was also an elder. So.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yes. Wow. Gosh. My goodness. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Really, I feel for you. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I can't imagine.
It was scary and devastating at the time, but
sure.
I mean,
was it after that moment you were like, fuck this, pardon my language?
You can say
I'm out.
This, yeah. I mean, yes, 100%, but also it did take me some time. I had to work with a very,
or at least mentally in your head, like, you know what, I'm done with this.
Oh yeah. Well, there was definitely a break before that. We didn't tell that, but yes, that moment when I was sort of watching all of these guys sitting there and they tell me that I could do this or not this, and this would be what would happen to me and threaten me and stuff. Definitely that night, I think we decided, okay, we'd already decided, but
that was the last straw, right? It was just like,
definitely.
If there was any doubts lingering, that took care of that.
Definitely.
Sort of essentially. Yeah, that's I mean, so what kind of plan do you make to like exit this church? I mean, because the idea of like someone controlling your community, right? Y'all are Canadian, right? This is in Toronto, right?
Yes.
So like being a Texan for most of my life, an American, I was born here, right? American, definitely born here. My brother's born in Mexico. I was born here.
Yeah.
The idea of like someone especially in Texas, like controlling you like that is insane, right? I know there are churches here that are like that, but right, this idea that this community, these people, there's a lot of them here actually, to be honest with you. And this idea, right, that these other people will control your life for you is insane to me.
They'll try, and
they'll try.
That's the joke that I make now. It's like, well, thankfully, the government of Ontario, Canada doesn't care whether or not the church is going to release me or not. And I got a lawyer, immediately, and started working with her, and we started the process of getting separated because I didn't, and that really made them very angry. And they sent me registered mail, and they just said, okay, well, now we're going to excommunicate you, which was very devastating to me because I had devoted my entire life to the church. I mean, truly. And then apparently they did that. I didn't have to attend, thankfully, but there were some people there that texted me or called me afterwards and said that this took place today. And it broke my heart. It really did. But now I'm sort of wear it as a badge of honor, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
did they do like a whole presentation at the church of like, we're getting rid of this person?
Yes, and no one is to have communication with her, and
oh my goodness.
Yeah, the whole thing.
And of course, we weren't there, so we but this is firsthand information from someone who
for sure.
I guess I want to say one quick thing on that too, though, right? Which is like part of the severity of the experience that, especially Ashley. I mean, I had my own issues, but they were different. But the experience that Ashley went through is predicated on the psychology of growing up in this tradition, right? Because as much as we're sort of like, well, why don't you say like fuck off? Like I'm an adult woman, I can make my own choices. It's like, well, underneath
not that easy.
That is the sense that what if these guys are right? And what if I am off God's path and I'm going to hell for this? And if that feeling were seated in you when you were 25 or 30 or whatever, you could weigh that against your lived experience. But when it's presented to you at the age of 4, right? Or 5 or 8 or even 12, it's like, it's really hard to deprogram that sense of like, this is real, right? So that's where, I when we talk about this with other people, I say like the Christian worldview is a great backloaded proposition, right? Mm-hmm. So Kanye West's a Christian now. Well, good for him. He spent his whole life doing whatever the hell he wants, and now he gets the get out of jail free card.
Right.
But it's a terrible front-loaded proposition, and you see that with we're millennials, right? So that millennial generation kind of starting to reject it now. It's like we all grew up in this from the time we were little kids, and we live with the baggage of believing something a lot more palpably, right? This hell concept, and God is everywhere at all times, and Satan is everywhere at all. Like, we all believe this stuff as fervently as you believe that Santa Claus exists when you're that age, mm-hmm. but no one ever says it's not true. They just keep reinforcing it. Yeah. So now, absolutely. As an adult, to get to sort of deprogram yourself from that worldview is a lot more difficult than simply saying, hey, these people are mistreating me, and I have, personal autonomy here, so I'm going to do what I want, right? It's not that simple.
No, I had to go through I did do a lot of work, and I will do a minor shout out to Dr. Marlene Linnell, and she was my therapist for many months, and she's like the best deconstruction of mostly fundamentalist religions in the country, in my opinion. And she and I worked for many hours just trying to unravel all of those insidious lies and things that you're told to control you, especially as a woman, but absolutely. Just in general, all that stuff that's just that very heavy fundamentalist Bible-based stuff. It's sad and dark, and it still kind of scares you at some point, but yeah, we did a lot of work together. She's the best. So.
No, I bet you know what? You give me an idea. We might try to have somebody like that on the podcast, or her. I mean, that would be a fascinating conversation, to be honest with you. Right? That would be fascinating. But I was going to ask you, like, have y'all had any sort of, any repercussions from the church? Like, I don't know. Any, like, Scientology, right? Like, they still go after people after, like, I don't know. Is there anything crazy like that happening from them, or?
Well, once Ashley was excommunicated, that was kind of the end of, their formal approach to try to change the outcome of this situation. I would say that, a lot of the spillover in terms of the relationships that we both used to have, I've lost plenty of friends over this too, who were Christians. And who see this as, and look, I don't even fault these people for feeling this way.
Sure, it's what they believe,
And
it's the way we used to be.
They feel they've been lied to, right? In the sense that we were big Christians and now we're not. So they have every right to feel offended by that fact. But the problem is that
I have friends like that too.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, but now, we're just telling the truth. So what do you want us to do? Continue to lie? I mean, this is how we feel, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. If you want me to accept your truth, you got to accept mine.
Right.
Right. If you want me to accept you're still a Christian, well, I am not anymore. Why is that not okay? But you get to be a Christian. That's my argument to my friends who don't want to talk to me anymore, who are believers. From that time period of my life, because I'm still friends with a lot of those people. One is my very close friend from that time period. He doesn't go to the church, but he's still willing to be my friend. Doesn't care, right? Like, if I believe in God or not, that's not what's important to him. It's just, if we're friends, I treat him well, he treats me well. We're friends. We've known each other for so long. It's like, it's crazy. I always say I don't pick my friends based on who they vote for. But recently I started adding, or what God they believe in. Right? I don't care. It doesn't. So I hope, people around me are the same way, but obviously you can't control that. Right. And at the same time, like you said, Colin, you make a good point. Like, at the same time, you almost can't fault someone who has a certain belief as like, I can't really be friends with you because of X. Well, you're like, damn, I get through your lens, that makes sense. Through mine, it doesn't. But through your lens, I understand why you feel that way. It's this weird, it's this weird thing of like, you want to sort of understand them, but it's frustrating at the same time. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, no, yes. And that comes back to what we were talking about. It's just, as you get older, nothing is that serious, you know? It's just like my new mantra I live by, like, nothing is that serious, guys, you know? And so that's how I feel about the situation. And I don't have contempt towards anybody who's still caught up in it. I see it from their perspective, but they take it real serious, you know?
Sure.
And there's nothing you can do about that except to continue to be gracious. And that's what they should be doing. And actually we should make, you know, a point of saying that's not every Christian. There are plenty of people who have been understanding and willing to listen. It's always the first step.
Absolutely.
Like, if you just look at it on the face of it, you're gonna form an opinion, which is probably not going to be correct. But as you listen, you start to understand, okay, there's some nuance here about this particular situation. And you know, I should say too, right? My parents are absolute fervent, you know, believers, and they have been effectively our biggest supporters in that they were willing to extend grace. Wow. And to me, like, they're, you know, in their worldview, they still believe that divorce is wrong. They believe, you know, in the sanctity of marriage, all these things, but they put grace, you know, the grace of God and you know, Christ's death on the cross and all the things that if you're a Christian are supposed to be central to your faith ahead of all that stuff. And so they're able to say, look, it doesn't matter how we got here. We're here. We still love you. And, you know, they've effectively, you know, stepped up as Ashley's surrogate parents now. And I think that's beautiful. And they would attribute that to their understanding of the person of Christ. They wouldn't say they're compromising. They would say that's what Christ actually calls us to do, which is to be forgiving and gracious and all those things. So there have been plenty of people that have still done the right thing in spite of their, you know, their Christian world.
Yeah, and your sister.
Yeah, my sister and brother-in-law and many others.
So some friends from the church did still stay in contact.
A couple of friends actually left the church
because of it.
When they were there for the excommunication, they were like, okay, they didn't like stand up with a sign, but they left and didn't come back and reached out to us and said, hey, you know, we were there for this, and it wasn't many people, but it was a handful, and that's enough for me just to be able to have somebody that wants to, like you said, listen and understand what happened. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, Ashley. I didn't, you know, that your parents, like, that's, you know, your family, like, that doesn't want to speak to you because of this is insane to me. I'm so sorry to hear that. Honestly, that makes me so sad. They're the ones missing out, to be honest. They're the ones missing out, right? Like, it's so crazy.
We have a child together now too, and they don't know her, and that maybe makes me the most sad of all. But because we're grown-ups, we can handle it, and we understand things happen in life. But you know, she's just a little innocent baby, and
absolutely, of course,
it's just when you have that worldview, they're not going to change, and so I just have to move on.
Do you think that's possible? They change with time, maybe. Do y'all try to reach out? I don't know how that works, so I'm not trying to dig in too much, but I just, I feel for y'all. Like, I care for y'all in a way. Like, I just want to see this work out. You know,
there have been attempts on both sides through the years, very lightly, but at the end of the day, when I've sort of said, do you still feel this way about it's like we've said, it's like being gay in the church. They don't accept my lifestyle. And so being remarried is not acceptable to them, and especially being remarried to them. So
it's like a double whammy to them.
Yeah, they would speak to just me, but they won't have a relationship with him or with our daughter. So it's like, that's a non-starter.
Absolutely. What does that mean? Yeah, that's like, you either take us all or not. I mean, what does that mean? Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
They're trying to control you again, right? That's the same same thing.
You get it. You got it.
Several layers of psychology at play there too, but I would say part of the problem with a lot of this stuff is when you double down and triple down and quadruple down, you're stuck, right? Yeah. You know, you either have to do a bunch of damage control and really change your position altogether and acknowledge that you were wrong, or you're just going to keep digging yourself deeper. So, you know, without getting into any of the specifics, that's kind of where we're at with a lot of these folks. Just like we at every juncture where there was an opportunity to make amends and make, you know, restitution for all of this, they doubled down again, right? So
I'll get a happy birthday message after not hearing from them for 2 years. And it's like,
well, yeah, I mean,
you know, okay,
just random. Yeah, what does that mean? Yeah,
but it's
absolutely.
so that they can then say to their Christian friends, we tried.
Yeah, we reached out. We sent a message from everybody, right? Like somehow everyone's connecting to, like they sent the message to. No, absolutely. Look, at some point y'all have to just decide, right? Too. Hey, we got to get on with our lives, make new friends, right?
Yeah, and then
which y'all are doing.
Yeah, hallmarks of real relationships are humility and being able to be vulnerable, and we just haven't experienced that from that side. So,
Sure. Of course.
we're again, if anybody, we're open to, reconciling with anybody that wants to actually meet us where we're at, but that's not what we've experienced from that side. So, yeah.
Have y'all met any other people that have sort of gone through this, or online or something? I don't know. Any response or anything?
So many people. A lot of Mormons. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. Sure.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, a lot of people at our shows come up to us a lot, and have shared their experiences, and for sure online we get a lot of messages. That's
awesome. That's great. Wow.
Which is great.
Great. That is great. Yeah, absolutely. Touching people through another way, right? Your life, you've somehow turned that into something positive.
I mean, I could talk about deconstruction all day long. I love it. And I think especially just the version of evangelicalism that we're similar ages that we all grew up with was very, maybe phony is not the right word, but it was kind of like we had the DC talk, and we had all the the Christian bands that were trying to start fit in with the cool bands, and the True Love Waits movement, and the Don't Kiss Until You're Married. Like, it was just this really, but in the end, so many people that are our age that we grew up with in church have left the faith because it wasn't genuine. It was just like you said, you wanted to hang out. It was cool to go to youth group in the 90s and early 2000s, and so. I don't know if it is now, but
yes, I mean, one could write the whole history of the I would say the American megachurch or contemporary Christianity or whatever. But I think there's something there about Reagan conservatism through the 80s,
right,
and then the kind of rejection to that in the 90s with the sort of Rage Against the Machine type attitude towards the man and all that. But then in parallel to that, you have our sort of, I had sort of preppy parents who wanted their children to have that more, Leave It to Beaver American nuclear family experience. And that hooked into, Reagan conservatism. And so you get all that stuff from the 90s being repackaged in a kind of Christian format. Like, someone could write this whole story, right? But I think that's where, coming back to what we said earlier, that's all starting to kind of fall apart. It's a bubble in a sense. I've said that too, right? You have these huge mega churches with multi-million-dollar budgets, right? And it's like, is that even is that what the message of Jesus was really about? Like, creating this sort of pseudo capitalistic version of Christianity where
making it palatable, right?
It's like that doesn't even actually make sense. Theologically, if you're a Christian. And then second to that, just we talked about again, you get this corruption thing that happens. These churches you've got people on the staff who are actually, they're basically people who've gone to seminary or to other sort of Bible colleges, and then they get jobs as worship pastors making hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's like none of that really makes any sense when you boil it down. And as soon as people figure that out and they start leaving these churches, the whole thing collapses. And now you've got people who have no life skills, because they've spent their whole life, participating in this whole bubble, this evangelical bubble.
Well, we even watched the Jerry Falwell documentary last night. Have you watched that yet?
I haven't seen that.
Okay.
Oh my God, I got to see this.
Jerry Falwell Jr. But, these pastors are all falling from grace, and even recently here.
Oh, wait, is that about the pool boy?
Yes. It's the pool boy.
I haven't seen it, but I saw the trailer. I read an interview too. Yes, I want to see that. That looks, I remember when that story came out. That's nuts, for sure.
So, I mean, all of this stuff is happening all the time. Mark Driscoll, I mean, the list is so long, but
Texas on its own, like you said, we could just stay in Texas. Like it's
Exactly.
amazing. I lived in Austin for 7 years. What happens outside of Austin is insane. It's one of the craziest little churches that's around there. It's a little cult that they call it, and again, at anything, whatever belief, I don't know. It's like at some point we have to protect each other in society, but at the same time we got to give each other enough freedom to be who we are, right? At what point do we step in for other people? You know what I'm saying? It's like that's where the line starts to blur because you go to some of the people, hey man, I want you out of here. What are you doing? You're throwing your life. What? I love it here. I'm not leaving. Are you brainwashed, right? You ask yourself that, right? If someone were to ask you 5 years before what happened to y'all, you'd be like, no, I'm not leaving. That would never happen to me. I'm staying here. This is what I do. It's, I don't know. It's right. It's crazy.
And the elders that showed up at Ashley's house thought they were doing that in reverse, right?
Correct.
They don't think they're doing something bad. They think
they were probably on their way, listening to hardcore Christian music, right? Going, we're doing this. This is what this is the right thing. And their wives tapping them on the back like, yep, you're doing the right thing. Oh my God, you're brave, courageous for going over there. Not just doing the right thing, but like really doing the right thing. Yes, absolutely. It is about perspective sometimes, which is hard to, put into perspective in a weird way, and that can be hard to accept sometimes. To be honest, I don't know. Does it make it right? Does it make it wrong? What is right and wrong? I could talk about this all day. Yeah, right. It becomes this thing. I remember a big part of why I was okay not being a believer in God was like when I realized I can be a good person without it, because I was told for a few years there, like, that's the only way you're going to be a good person, Patrick, is if you believe in God. If you take Jesus Christ to your heart, then you'll be a good person. Without it, you're going to be out here just murdering people, just crazy stuff. And then when I realized, wait, I don't have any of those desires without it. I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, a beautiful show that we love and we cry our eyes at watching is Afterlife. It's Ricky Gervais's show about
such a good show.
Right?
Oh, right.
And it's like, so if you know Ricky Gervais, he's an atheist, and one of the most common questions you get is like, well, why aren't you out killing people if you're an atheist, right? You don't believe in anything, just rape and pillage like the Vikings, right? And it's like the story arc of the show has to do with that sort of nihilistic worldview that you have when you've lost everything and you have nothing to believe in, but then you find, in spite of that really just being good, whatever that means, is the thing that kind of propels you forward, and
in connection with other people.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers to it. I shouldn't even try to summarize it because it's such a beautiful show, but that's again where I feel like we've kind of landed in the same place, where you come through all this stuff and you're told like there is an objective moral law, it's God's law, that's how you measure where you are in terms of being a good person, right? And it's like, no, you don't need to do that. You just need to reach inside yourself to find that common connection with people, and it manifests itself in goodness, like it just does. And lots of psychologists, I'm sure, would have all kinds of more academic explanations for that. But in terms of our lived experience, like the people that we know that are Christians, I mean, I'm not throwing the baby out with bathwater, but many of those people are the worst people. They're so cruel and they're so unforgiving, and it's like everything is an opportunity to criticize someone, and it's people who tend to be more on the atheistic end of the spectrum, or just open, that are really interested in serving others and taking time out of their life to help people, like that kind of thing, right? So anyway, it's something that we continue to experience, and to your point, we don't have that sense of like right and wrong anymore, and yet it's in a weird way made us better people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's real simple, right? The golden rule. That's all you need to know. That's what I tell everyone. That's what I tell. What do you mean? To add on real quick to Ricky Gervais, we'll tighten up here. We'll wrap up here. But I do want to say that he would always say, Ricky Gervais to that point, he would say, wait a second, wait, the only reason you're not out killing people is because of that? So like, I got to worry about you? Like, wait a second, that's the only thing holding you back? Yeah.
You wish you could do it, but there's,
Yeah, wait a second, that's the real problem we got to focus on here. Yeah, you wish you could do it, but God says don't, so you're not. Wait a second. Yeah, that's like what a libertarian tells me. Well, I just want, no sheriff, no police, just let it. Wait a second. What do you want to do that you can't do right now? Because you can pretty much do whatever you want. I mean, within reason. What are you trying to do in life that you need no laws? I don't like the idea of that. That scares me, that you want this, I don't know. Anyway, so look, real quick, let's finish up with the band real quick here with the music. So where can people check out your music, your website, that sort of thing, all those sort of social connections?
Yeah, the easiest way to find us is just to go to wearetulip.com, and you can get to everything from there. So we'll
definitely put the link in the description and all that for sure.
Yeah. And we're We Are Tulip on Instagram, and we're We Are Tulip on Twitter. And so you can, if you remember that, you'll find us. But the website has all the links to everything anyway.
Awesome. Right on. What are you guys most excited for coming up music-wise? Just more writing, the touring, playing? I don't know.
Yeah, I like performing live. That's my favorite thing. But I think just in the next 2 weeks, our new single. You're gonna love it.
Hell yeah,
it's
that's awesome.
Really amazing. And our friend Michael Levine, he did an incredible video for it. And I think it's gonna be, people are gonna love it. Great.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Get all that music out. I think, hopefully we'll gain some more traction there and see where we end up in 2023.
Yeah. Keep putting out great videos too. Y'all have great videos. Y'all do a good job with that. That's awesome. That's hard to do too, because I see a lot of videos for a lot of bands.
Yeah,
and it's hard to get right. Yeah. I bet for sure.
We want to do those. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Y'all do a great job with that. The light, it just looks super great. Looks great. Super excited for y'all with everything coming up. Hopefully 2023 everything happens with this tour. Fingers crossed. Mm-hmm. Maybe when that's over, you guys come back on. We'll talk more. I'm happy to have y'all all again, and keep
come out and visit us in Argyle anytime.
That's it. Let's do it. I'm down. Argyle. What's out there? What's some good barbecue out there? I know there's a barbecue spot, right? Isn't there a good barbecue spot out there?
407.
407. That's it. 407. Okay.
407 BBQ is.
Yeah. No, you're right. We've been trying to visit a lot of the top 50 barbecue spots. I've been going to interview them and film with them behind the scenes and stuff. Because I'm a chef. I owned a food truck in Austin for a long time. Right. Yeah. From the food world. So I'm all about that stuff. Going, to hang out. But I never did barbecue. Barbecue is like a whole nother.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's another thing. It's just, think of it as another instrument, but like a crazy instrument you can't ever could possibly play without actually sitting down to learn it. Some weird thing. Yeah, being a pit master and even pit masters, they will not call themselves chefs. Like, that's another thing. So yeah, for sure. 407. Okay, awesome. Well, let me know. I tell you what. I have y'all's email address, so I'll send an email and maybe we'll get some barbecue. I'm totally down. It's on me.
That'd be great.
I will throw down for some barbecue for sure. Okay, guys. Well, look, I know you guys have a lot on your plate, a lot going on. So my, best of luck to y'all with everything. And I don't know, anything I didn't cover, anything you want to quickly throw out? I think we covered a lot, to be honest.
We did cover a lot.
When we come back, we should talk about Texas, because that's a big part of the story too, and we love it here, and we're proud to be Texans now.
You're right. And we need to get to Texas. Y'all just have so much to talk about.
Next time.
I'm all about talking about Texas. I love that. Absolutely. Of course. Well, real quick, before on our way out, what's your favorite thing about Texas? Is that too much?
Well, it's hard to distill what it is that makes Texas, Texas. But I'll tell you, man, when I land at DFW and I exit that, that gate at the north end of the airport, and I see that huge American flag against the orange and cobalt sky, I get choked up every time.
He cries.
And I don't know what it is. It's probably hooked into our whole experience of exodusing the church and all of that. But there's something about
the skies,
the feeling here. People, and that's the
people. Yeah.
Think, to a Canadian, I'll just give you one little quick paragraph. To a Canadian, Texas is a caricature of like a right-wing Republican, like racist person or something, right? And it's like it's nothing like that here.
Oh yeah.
Even the people who are on the political right are nothing like that here.
Yeah.
Everybody is Texan first, right? And that's a really special experience. It creates this sort of like grassroots community feeling that you just don't experience anywhere else. And people are friendly, they're warm, they're polite, and it's just a great place to live. There's so much opportunity, there's so much space.
Quality of life, living, yeah.
I mean, it goes on and on. So we were used to be evangelical Christians. Now we're evangelical Texans. And we tell everybody how great it is here. And all of our Canadian friends are trying to find ways to get down here. Everybody who visits us, like,
everybody comes and they're like, we have to move.
The big Canadian exodus to Texas. I love this.
Here's my other one-liner is it's like California in the 90s. Everybody moved to California for opportunity, for weather, for, that's where the art scene was, Hollywood, the whole thing. It's like Texas is just becoming that. And I'm sure like Californians would say that's ridiculous. Of course, it's not like that, but it is. It's like
not far off.
Yeah, everybody wants to be here, and that's where things are happening. In Austin, now more so in DFW, you've got the Gulf Coast, like NASA, SpaceX, like it's great. So we're real happy to be.
And I love ZZ Top.
Where it is ZZ Top.
Absolutely. My friend Eric, shout out to Eric Jarvis. He used to play with them. Yes, love ZZ Top. I actually recorded one time in their studio, Sugarland in Houston. I went to this little storage room where I got to see all their old guitars and stuff. Like I wasn't even supposed to see it. The guy's like, okay, I'm going to let y'all in here. Amazing. Yes. Big love ZZ Top. Shout out to those guys. Listen, y'all are amazing. Thank y'all again so much. Can't wait to do this again. And this was just amazing. Thank y'all so much for taking the time. So I know y'all have a busy schedule. So thank y'all very much.
Hey, Zelda was quiet. Good work.
You've been listening to the Lone Star Plate podcast with your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong. For more info, go to lonestarplate.show.